The off-season podcasts begin. Welcome to the show. It is Monday, January 4th. I'm Adam Azer, joined by Dave Richard, Chris Towers, and the biggest sandwich in the industry, JV Eisenberg.
Oh, I love your sandwich.
I don't know how to interpret that.
Yeah, that's a weird one.
That was a weird one.
I feel like I missed something.
That's a really sandwich weird.
Yeah. You did miss some. You could listen to 10 minutes of me ranting last night and replacing profanities with the word sandwich, which was Jamie's suggestion. Became fun.
It's a brilliant suggestion.
Yeah. So let me start by getting your quick NFL playoff thoughts. Dave Rich, I'm going to throw it to you. Just talk to me about the playoffs. Go.
Well, the Giants aren't in it. Sorry. There's one game that's
Chris, you can go now. No, go ahead, Dave. You can finish. You're stupid.
There's only one game that excites me, and that's that Titans-Ravens game. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And even then, I expect Baltimore to pull it out. I'm going to watch every game. It's going to be cool to have two triple headers. Going to be busy this weekend, honey. Sorry, we can't go out. I can't get stuff done around the house.
That's the only game. Not Cleveland, Pittsburgh. All right, Chris, I'll go to you. What are your playoff thoughts?
Yeah, I think Cleveland, Pittsburgh should be a pretty fun one. There's always one game every year where some team that we don't really think has a chance to win pulls one out. I think last year it was probably the Titans twice. So maybe they'll do that again. But, Washington and Chicago both have a chance this year because somehow two 500 or below teams made the playoffs in the NFC.
And a good thing we're going to see Alvin Kamara, hopefully, because their game is on Sunday. Jamie, give me a round one upset. If you think it could happen, it would be which one?
In terms of seeding or in terms of point spread?
Well, I haven't looked at the point spread, but let's do spread.
Point spread upset that could happen would be the Browns beating the Steelers.
That would be a 4-point spread. New Orleans by 9.5. Baltimore 3.5. Interesting. Okay. Tampa Bay at -8. Colts or the Bills -7. And if Goff Walford, I guess, was okay. But Rams Seahawks be close. With 4.5 points is the spread there. Seattle is favored. Seattle's not super inspiring right now, I suppose. Okay. Well, we got a busy show today. We got a great show for you tonight. We've got our award nominations. Next Tuesday, we're actually going to give out the awards. Ben Trager, I assume we're going to let people vote for these on Facebook?
Yeah, they'll all be posted in the Facebook group. So we'll do our nominations today and let the fans decide.
Great.
Love it.
We're going to nominate for the awards today. Biggest bust, best waiver wire ad, MVP, all those things. And we're going to give you a few players who gave us something to think about going into 2021 for week 17. To the news and notes, in week 17, sorry. The news and notes, the Jets fired Adam Gase.
Shocker.
Doug Peterson said he was coaching to win.
Sure.
Yep. Jacksonville fired Doug Marrone. Not shocking. Mike Evans left with a leg injury, and he became the first wide receiver with 1,000 yards in each of his first 7 seasons. Good for him. And no structural damage, so hopefully we'll see him back sooner rather than later. T. Higgins left with an injury. Austin Ekeler concussion. Kyler Murray left with an ankle injury. He came back. Ezekiel Elliott hurt his leg, but he came back. He just wasn't healthy, though. On NFL Red Zone, they said that Sunday, Week 17, was the highest scoring episode ever in Red Zone history. And Chris, you said this was the highest scoring season in NFL history, right?
Yeah, the 12,692 points were scored this season. The previous high was 2018 when 11,952 were scored. So more than 700 more points in 2020 than any season in NFL history. And it was the highest in points per game.
Wild stuff. Fun stuff, too.
I wonder if that's going to correlate with fantasy points per game. We always have the top 12 average per position. I haven't figured that out yet. It won't take me long to figure out, but I wonder if that's up across the board. It's got to be for quarterback, but I wonder if that's up across the board.
I would guess quarterback and wide receiver it will be.
Yeah. Yes. Right. We did this a few weeks ago on one of the Monday shows, and it's like number 12 this year versus number 12 last year may not have been that big of a difference, but number 5 probably was. The elite players were just so good this year, especially.
I just did this because I'm writing up our top 12 quarterbacks for 2021 of the early rankings that we submitted. and there are 11 quarterbacks that average at least 24 fantasy points this season. I would imagine that's probably the most ever.
That's a lot of points. Okay,
With at least 5 stars.
Impressive marks. Lamar Jackson rushed for 1,000 yards again. What?
You know who's number 1?
In points per game?
With at least 5 starts.
Oh, I know who it is if it's at least 5 starts.
Dak?
I'm going to say Aaron Rodgers.
Nope.
Dak Prescott by 0.7 points.
Lamar Jackson rushed for 1,000 yards again. Derrick Henry rushed for 2,000 yards. And Justin Jefferson set a record, most receiving yards by a rookie in the Super Bowl era. And Jefferson finished as the number 6 wide receiver in non-PPR, number 7 in PPR, 1,400 yards. Let's reflect on Justin Jefferson's incredible season. Jamie, the best rookie season ever. Now, he just beat Anquan Bolden's record, and you could argue that Bolden's best season of his career was his rookie year. But he also had an amazing career. So, how does it go wrong for Justin Jefferson? He was only, I think, 16th in targets among wide receivers. But what a year, and what does that mean going forward?
Well, first off, kudos to you because, you were very high on him this offseason. So, good job by you. I wish you would have stuck by it as opposed to bullying you into backing off that. But he was awesome. What could go wrong for him? A better defense in Minnesota and Mike Zimmer being stubborn. I think you're clearly seeing Adam Thielen's decline, slowly, but decline in terms of where he was a couple of years ago at his peak to where he is now. He's scoring a lot of touchdowns. That's obviously fantastic, but his overall play is not the same. But if Mike Zimmer has his way, they don't want to throw the ball a lot. So I think that's the only thing that could potentially hinder his production continuing to be on this level or increasing. But he could still be a very serviceable, if not above average fantasy wide receiver. And he's going to be drafted as such.
Is he a 2nd round pick?
No.
No,
I don't think so. I don't think he will be. I think round 3 will be the soonest you'll see Justin Jefferson.
It was definitely going to be a round 3 at the latest,
and there's going to be some amazing round 3 picks. Round 4 too. We've got a treat coming next year. You'll see. We're going to do a mock draft soon.
Is he a top 12 wide receiver?
Yes.
Yeah, I think he should be across the board.
Okay, but didn't make your top 24. I think we're revealing our top 12. Maybe we'll stretch it to top 24 on tomorrow's show. 3 times a week during the off season. So that's going to be most likely it's going to be Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and the later in the week we'll preview the games, the upcoming games for the weekend.
The top 12 wide receivers did outscore the top 12 in 2019 by 1 point per game. The top 12 quarterbacks outscored the top 12 in 2019 by 2.5 points per game.
Yeah, I just did the math on that. It's like 25.3 points per game for the top 12 quarterbacks. It's a lot.
And if you look at tight end, the number 3 tight end is crap.
Tight end was the one. Tight end was somehow they didn't get the message that it was 2020. They got stuck in like 2007 this year.
Something like that. Chris, let me ask you about Austin Ekeler. So he left with a concussion, and I know you're very high on him. You have him ahead of Derrick Henry in your PPR rankings for next season. But do you think that, we also saw, nobody's going to really remember this, but Kalen Ballage got a goal line touchdown in week 17, and that happened a few weeks ago as well. Do you think that 2 injuries this year, including a week 17 concussion, might mean they are not going to trust him with a full enough, obviously not going to get like a full workload in terms of carries, but do you think they could limit his carries enough and his touchdowns enough in turn to really hurt his value?
It's entirely possible, but I have him projected for 189 carries and 78 catches next season. I'm pretty sure that would give him the fewest touches among anyone in the top 12 at running back by probably at least 20 or 30. He's such an efficient playmaker. He's such an efficient rusher. He's such an efficient receiver that he can afford to have a smaller role. Maybe we'll get to the start of the 2021 season and they'll have either really talked up Justin Jackson or Kalen Ballage but we've seen all these guys play. We've seen Joshua Kelly play. None of them really looks like someone that you want to give extra work to take away from Ekeler. Ekeler's been so good. that it really is only a question of can he hold up to it? And I don't know if kind of a freak hamstring injury in week 4 and then a concussion, like those things happen. You know, I don't think the Panthers are going to restrict Christian McCaffrey's usage because he got hurt 3 times.
Eckler's a little dude, though.
Sure, he's small, but he's very stout. And he hasn't really had a ton of injury concerns before this. You know, he had missed 2 games in his career before 2020. So I'm not too worried about that. Maybe I can be talked into moving him a little lower. I do have him 5th in PPR, and there's kind of a glut between him and number 9. So it's possible I could move him down. Sure.
Dave,
there's a whole lot of ball game left, though. We don't know who his coach is going to be, who his play caller is going to be, if they add another running back at any point in the next 5 months. So there's a lot that has to shake out here.
All right, Dave, we're doing a mock draft, I think, tomorrow and every day for the rest of our lives. Is he a no doubt about it first-round pick in PPR, Austin Ekeler?
No, I don't have him as a first-round pick in PPR, but I do have him as a top 20 pick.
Okay. All right. Hey, Ben Schrager, you there?
Yeah, what's up?
Slack's not working. I don't know what you want me to promote today.
Oh, Slack is down.
Oh, Slack is down. Oh, I guess I'm doing the playoff pick'em read. The playoffs are here.
Oh, cool.
2nd year in a row. Yeah. 2nd year in a row, we're giving away money. They've been here for a while.
Not the 2nd year in a row that the playoffs are here. They've been here considerably longer than that.
Well, we're giving away $5,000 for the 2nd year in a row.
Oh.
That's pretty good.
In the playoff pick'em, whether you want to pick the games for cash, compete against your friends, we have you covered. 2 easy ways to play. First is the playoff challenge, where you can win the $5,000. Just make your picks. Pick the winners and the champ walks away with $5,000. Second, you can get your friends, family, coworkers, anybody who loves football, have a fully customizable player pool. A little private pool, play for your own stakes. You'll be in full control of any of the options you want. Playoff Pick'em, totally free. CBSSports.com/playoff or download the CBS Sports app now. Start your pool, play for $5,000.
Awesome. I'm in. All right, let's turn our attention to players who gave us something to think about going into 2021. This was based on their either late season or their Week 17 performances. Jamie, 2 players who gave you something to think about going into 2021.
One will definitely be with his team. The other one, I don't know yet. The first one is Laviska Shenault. I'm very excited, obviously, about the quarterback situation coming to Jacksonville. And I think it's pretty clear he's going to be one of their top 3 wide receivers. I do think there's a chance that they add another one to the mix. But if they stick with the group that they have with DJ Chark, Colin Johnson, and Laviska Shenault being their top 3 guys, then I think there's an opportunity here for him to be very successful. You saw what he could do as the lead guy with a terrible quarterback situation because Mike Lennon stinks. And so Shenault, put on a show in Week 17, and I hope that carries over to a strong sophomore season in 2021 with a better quarterback and hopefully a better coach. The other is Antonio Brown, and I think he's kind of shown us he can still play. And
wow, thievery! You stole it from Chris. You stole one of Chris's guys.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That is such a sandwich move right there. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
I don't know where Antonio Brown's playing next year. I don't know how he's going to finish this year, but it was it's kind of been fun to watch. Him prove that he can still play in this league. That he's not old and washed up, and that he can still be a difference maker when the targets are there for him. So curious to see what happens to him this offseason.
Both of these guys took advantage of Chark being out and then Evans getting hurt, and they both finished. I think they both had 2 touchdown games in Week 17. Chris, what did you want to say about Antonio Brown?
Mostly the same thing. It was frustrating, I think, this season because he was added to a team that really there was no point in them adding him. It just kind of created an even bigger mess than what was already there. But whether he returns to Tampa Bay, and my preference would be that he doesn't, or whether he signs somewhere else and preferably somewhere where he's not taking away targets from 2 other elite wide receivers. He has more left in the tank than I would have thought, and definitely more than I did think. And if he lands in the right spot, he could be an intriguing option next season.
Well, he could stay in Tampa Bay and they can move on from Chris Godwin, which would be interesting if they decide to go that route. So we'll see what happens there.
They could get rid of Godwin and then sign Julian Edelman when he's a free agent because the Patriots could cut him. And then it's the full-blown Brady reunion show.
There you go. By the
Be
way,
interesting.
Chris giving me a note that Zach Ertz said. He said his time in Philly, quote, was the best experience I've ever had, and that there's nothing he would change. But it sounds as if he feels as if he's moving on. But we'll see. Maybe Antonio Brown ends up in Philly. What would you guys think about that? They need a wide receiver.
They need a quarterback too. Maybe.
They have their quarterback.
Which
I
one?
think he's one of the guys that
I
we're
think
going to think a lot about.
It's
this
obviously
offseason.
Nate Sudfeld. I mean, he was playing in crunch time yesterday.
the likely destination for him if he doesn't go to Tampa is probably going to be Seattle,
That makes sense.
maybe
yeah.
Baltimore.
Okay,
Well, if
let's
Seattle
talk
had the chance to get him, and if Baltimore had the chance to get him this year, what changes that?
We don't know if he wanted to
get
go
him
there.
next year.
No, he could have wanted to just go to with Brady in Tampa.
Sure, and maybe they weren't sure if he was still the same player. I'm answering my own question now, but Brown's really shown in the last couple of weeks that he's still pretty good, just like you said.
Let's wrap up these two players. Chenault, would you guys rather, if you're drafting tomorrow, which we are, and every day after, would you rather have Chenault or Michael Pittman right now?
Chenault.
I think I'm going to
Yeah.
say Chenault.
I feel better about the quarterback situation in 2021 in Jacksonville. Weirdly,
We don't know the
than I do
quarterback
about
for the
Indianapolis.
Colts.
Exactly.
Wentz.
That's what makes the most sense.
Get him.
Wentz makes sense.
Yeah, but if Rivers wants to come back and they make a playoff run, Rivers is going to be the quarterback for the Colts.
Yeah, probably. Okay, moving on we'll go to Chris's players since we already knocked out one of them, Antonio Brown being one and J.K. Dobbins the other in the last 6 games of the season. Well, it was 7 weeks. It was 6 games for him. He missed one with being on the COVID list. He ended up as the number 10 running back per game. That can't be right. Yeah, I think it was number 10 per game and number 11 per game in PPR, but basically top 10 in both. He was like practically tied for 10th. In that 6-game stretch for him, he was on pace for 205 carries, 1,320 yards, 19 touchdowns, and 8 catches. He averaged 6.4 yards per carry down the stretch, and he scored in every game. So, Chris, what are your thoughts on J.K. Dobbins? Yeah, he does give us a lot to think about, and we will see more of him, obviously, at least one more game. But he's giving us a lot to think about right now with a strong finish.
There are going to be some vicious fights in the fantasy football world over J.K. Dobbins' 2021 value because I think there are going to be some people who I think Frank Stanfield, who hosts Fantasy Baseball Today, I think he's appeared on FFT as well.
Oh, sure.
He posted a poll yesterday. Where are you drafting J.K. Dobbins yesterday? This was right after the 87-yard touchdown run or whatever it was. Where are you drafting J.K. Dobbins in 2021? First round, second round, or I'm not going to get him? I don't think he's a first 2-round pick. I'm not sure he should be a top 3-round pick, but I know that's going to be somewhat controversial, and there are going to be a lot of people who are really, really into him, and it's easy to see why. He's a really talented running back in an offense that loves to run the ball, that creates a lot of efficient opportunities for running backs. The problem is, can you really envision 1,320 rushing yards, 19 touchdowns is that pace over the last 6 games? That would have been good for RB13 this season because he caught 3 passes. Lamar Jackson's thrown 101 targets to running backs over the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, but he also was better than RB13 in that stretch. He was 10th.
Right. I'm talking about comparing to the whole season. But yeah, sure, he was 10th. But even then, is he really going to do better than 1,320 yards and 19 touchdowns over a full season? I don't think so.
How is that only RB10? Wow.
Because he doesn't catch any passes. He had 3
he's going
catches
with
in 6
PPR
games.
scoring, right?
Yeah, he'll be higher. Him and Nick Chubb and a couple other guys will be significantly higher in non-PPR.
I don't think he's going to be a top 24 pick in PPR.
I don't think so either.
We'll see
I
where
think,
the hype gets. Yeah,
I think Frank. I think I wish I had Frank Stanfield on here. I would.
I think he was being a little,
Oh, okay.
Could he crack the top 24 on the idea of I want to get him before anybody else can at the end of round 2, and I'm picking again earlier enough in round 3? That I could see. Where I'm
Right.
I've got the 3rd overall pick. I've got my stud running back in round 1. I'm going to take a chance on Dobbins in round 2. I know that there's going to be a good receiver left for me in round 3 or a tight end. Just going to go.
I think you're going to see him drafted in round 2. I don't think you should, but I think he's going to end up drafted in round 2. I just think people are going to run for running backs this year, and you're going to see that late push in the 15 to 24 overall spots once, because you're going to see so many great wide receivers. Like, I think this is what kind of Dave was alluded to with Justin Jefferson. There's going to be so many great wide receivers in round 3.
Tons.
So many great wide receivers in round 4. And you're going to get these guys, especially if Gus Edwards leaves and they move on from Mark Ingram and they just bring in somebody, whether it's young or some veteran type. And you see what J.K. Dobbins can do in the workload that he's getting. We don't know if the offense will evolve at all. They went from this run-centric, dominant offense in 2019 to they tried to improve their passing attack in 2020. And do they have some more of a hybrid version of that in 2021? Or do they go back to what made them the number 1 seed in the AFC in 2019 and had a more successful season? I don't know what they're going to do. Greg Roman's not exactly the most flexible play caller. You kind of see what you get with him. And so I think it's just kind of one of those things where if he's the lead guy with not a lot of competition, I think he's going to be decent. Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb-esque, where you don't have to have a lot of catches to be a great PPR running back. You still be good. You may not be top 5 good, but you could still be great. And Derrick Henry's proven to be top 5 good, obviously. But I think there's obviously a lot to like about J.K. Dobbins, but the offseason is going to be telling for them.
Yeah, who that other running back is that they bring in. If it's Gus, because Mark Ingram has the most carries among anyone on the last 2 seasons. For an individual season, it was 202. And even in this 6-game stretch, Dobbins was on pace for 205. They just haven't treated anyone like a true Nick Chubb, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs.
Sure, but you also saw what Mark Ingram was last year, and he is a much better player at this point in his career than Mark Ingram was last year, and Ingram was awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Gus is a restricted free agent, by the way, so he's for sure going to get a good contract for 1 more year, and he'll be the 1B.
By the way, so I think we can say Lamar Jackson's been playing some pretty good football. The Ravens offense has been kind of clicking lately. How many pass attempts has he averaged in his last 5 games?
14.
Double that. 28.
20.
Oh, okay.
Although
surprising. I thought it'd be a little bit more than that.
He didn't start one of those games. So that was the
Pittsburgh game?
No, was it the Cleveland game that he didn't start? That I know he left that game, but I thought he started it.
No, he didn't play the Pittsburgh game because of COVID.
He didn't play that game, I know, but I'm just looking at his game log. It said 5 games, 4 starts. I don't know what that's all about.
He technically didn't start yesterday. I think that I think they might have done the same thing the Bills did with Josh Allen yesterday, where Josh Allen technically started at quarterback or at wide receiver. And I saw some speculation that it was to protect his win-loss record or something in case they pulled their starters and got blown out.
Okay.
That's weird.
All right, so 20 pass attempts per game for Lamar Jackson in his last 5. All right, Dave, your players that caught your eye, gave you something to think about going into 2021.
I'm always interested in who Kyle Shanahan's running back is. And I think Jeff Wilson has shown quite a bit over the last couple of weeks. Not necessarily the most efficient game rushing in week 17, but he's catching touchdowns, and he's clearly the lead guy. They're giving him a lot of work. Mostert could be a cap casualty this year. The team will save $3 million if they let him go. I wonder if Jeff Wilson is going to be the new flavor of the month/year in San Francisco's backfield.
It's a great, they're so good. I hope they get a better quarterback. Carson Wentz. Wentz makes sense.
He doesn't really fit that offense, though.
He makes sense.
Probably doesn't fit their cap sheet either.
Makes sense, though.
That's the bigger issue.
Yeah, Sam Darnold makes a lot of sense there.
I'd rather go.
Yeah, he does. He definitely does.
Dave, Jeff Wilson, and
Jerry Jeudy. Just the fact that he had that long touchdown. There were flashes of greatness from him this year, and there were flashes of absolute dog sandwich. So I think that I think he's got room to really improve. I don't know who his quarterback is going to be next year, but I still view him as a future number 1 fantasy football receiver.
I mean, he had one big play. Everybody's gone gaga over him. He's had such a bad rookie year. I'm not really disagreeing, but
It was a terrible rookie year because the expectations were so high. Like, he was in the same breath as CeeDee Lamb, and then both those guys got overshadowed by Jefferson. And Jefferson, in his own right, was a great prospect too. But Jeudy, just there's still going to be evidence that we can highlight of him just running phenomenal routes. It's the hands. I can't get over the hands, and the quarterback too. And I wonder if he just wasn't quite like feeling Drew Lock. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe he was like a little skittish catching passes from Lock, and that was why. This is me speculating.
I'm so excited about that offense next year. I think it's going to be so much fun. Lock has the potential, not to the same height because I don't think he's going to get there, but to be like how Josh Allen was, where you see progression year 1 to year 2. I hope there's a bigger leap year 2 to year 3. But you think about what's around him, and Noah Fant hopefully continues to get better. Jeudy continues to get better. KJ Hamler is the speed threat. Tim Patrick is the 4th receiver, which I think is pretty impressive as the 4. They're going to get Juwan James back at the right tackle after he opted out. Garrett Bowles had an amazing season at left tackle. The interior of the line is all young. And so these guys all have the chance to grow together.
You got to say Cortland Sutton here.
Yeah. Sutton's coming back too.
Cortland Sutton. I don't think you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me, Cortland Sutton. I guess I kind of overlooked the number.
You alluded to him. You said Patrick was the 4th receiver, but you never actually said Sutton. So let's just to get that out there.
Yeah, it's an exciting offense that has a chance to be special, but Judy's got to catch the ball. I mean, Dave's right. He's always open. I mean, everybody keeps raving about his route running. He almost dropped a wide open 2-point conversion too. It tipped up in the air and landed in his lap. Lock has to be better, but Jeudy gives them they have the potential to have 2 of the best wide receivers, one of the best wide receiver tandems in the NFL. If those 2 guys perform and progress as they have the potential to.
Okay, so Laviska Shenault or Jerry Jeudy next year?
Jeudy.
Judy's ceiling is much higher.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to give you my 2 players. What's that?
Wouldn't mind getting both of them.
All right. I'm going to give you my 2 players real quick and give me your thoughts. TJ Hockenson.
Oh, by the way, Anthony Lynn's has been fired.
Oh.
Yep.
That's okay. TJ
Just a
Hockenson.
little throwaway line here.
Giving me a lot to think about as finishing as a top 5 tight end, but really not such great numbers. I mean, 723 yards, 6 touchdowns. Did almost all of it without Kenny Golladay, although in 4 games that Golladay played and finished, he did have 3 touchdowns, but he had just 22 targets in those 4 games. So I just think, it was so unfortunate. He had a really good year, but he was terrible for fantasy managers down the stretch. Last 3 games, 9 catches for 66 yards combined on 13 targets. So, how high are we going to be, Dave, on TJ Hockenson going into 2021?
Get Eric Bieniemy to Detroit, please. Get him to Detroit so TJ Hockenson can be a flipping superstar in fantasy. That's. I mean, look, there's probably
that's the Adam Gase trick. I mean, you guy gets Peyton Manning.
I don't think he's a bad player.
And then you think that that's going to –
In fairness.
Just because Travis Kelce was great, it doesn't mean TJ Hockenson –
But that's a system that he's running that would lean on a tight end and make a tight end a part of the offense. Yeah. Matt Nagy's been trying to do it in Chicago ever since he got there.
Are you high on TJ Hockenson?
Who's his coach? Who's his play caller? Who's his quarterback?
You're drafting tomorrow. Are you high on TJ Hockenson?
No, not as high as I could be.
He's a top 12 tight end. Everybody's going to draft him as another guy.
I think the biggest thing is just they need to get back to throwing the ball down the field. That's what they did in 2019 that made Matt Stafford have such a great half season. And, it made us think that there was more upside in that offense than there ended up being because Stafford got back to, throwing a lot more short and intermediate routes. And Hawkinson's a guy who can make plays down the field, and they just haven't used that in his skill set yet.
It's also, you're going to lose Marvin Jones. He's a free agent. I'm sure he's gone. Is Kenny Golladay back? There's a lot that could change with this Lions team.
Right. And I kind of gave the critical approach to it. He faltered down the stretch, but he also had a really good year. He's a second-year guy. He's a top 10. He was a first-round pick. I don't remember what it was, around 11th or something. And it was top 10. 8, yeah. So
once you get past the first 4 tight ends, I'm going to assume Mark Andrews is still going to be drafted 4th. Then you start to look at who's the next best guy. And he's in that conversation for next best guy. We have to see what happens. Coach, surrounding weapons, all those things. But he's absolutely in that conversation. They could lose their quarterback. Matthew Stafford might not be back in Detroit. I mean, that will change everything for him.
Okay, my other guy, I kind of cheated here, went off the board, but I don't know that I was more impressed with anybody this past week than Devonta Smith, Alabama wide receiver, player of the year in college. Holy cow, he is incredible. I can't wait for him to be in the NFL. I think he should be, as of right now, I'm going to say it, the number 1 pick in Dynasty Leagues.
He might be. He might be. There's a lot of conversation. Is he better than Jamar Chase?
Jamar Chase. Goodness, It's going to be fun to talk about those guys.
And think about it, that if you're just comparing schools, the 2 Alabama receivers and the Alabama quarterback have not performed very well as rookies. The LSU receiver, who was not considered the best one, has been an absolute monster.
And the LSU quarterback wasn't so bad either, right?
So, a lot of people are going to look at that and make those comparisons. But yeah, Adam, I'm with you. I think it's going to be fun to see if the Dolphins commit to Tua, and now that they're picking 3rd, one of these 2 guys make a ton of sense for them if they don't go in the trenches. So if they go skill player, Devonta Smith or Jamar Chase make a ton of sense for Miami because they need something to help Tua, and you would assume, based on the Alabama connection, they probably go Smith.
I would say they should definitely be considering a quarterback.
I think a lot of people would.
And I don't know what to make of Justin Fields. I'm really interested to hear, let's have like Emory Hunt come on. He's the man. Because Fields has looked so, he did not look good in the Big Ten championship game, but oh my God, he was perfect last weekend. He was incredible. He was probably better than Devonta Smith. Those 2 guys were amazing. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, the fantasy awards, the MVP, the biggest bust, the rookie of the year. That's a tough one this year. The best waiver wire pickup, the worst waiver wire pickup, and the 1 week performance of the year, which is really easy, by the way. We'll tell you the nominees. We're going to figure out the nominees. We'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today. Hey, it's awards time. All right, let's rock and roll here. So each of us had to come up with at least 2 nominees for each category, and we'll narrow it down. Ben, what are we going to settle on? A top 4 at each?
Yeah, we'll go top 4.
Okay. Fantasy MVP. Jamie, why don't you start? Who are your nominees for fantasy MVP?
Aaron Rodgers and James Robinson. Rodgers being drafted near the bottom of the top 12, or in a lot of cases outside the top 12, and just performing the way that he did. I obviously thought he was going to have a bad season. I don't think I was alone in that regard, but I'll speak for myself that I didn't expect him to play like this. I didn't think he could play like this ever again. And what he was able to accomplish, what he was able to accomplish with Devonta Adams, who can make cases of fantasy MVP as well, is just absolutely remarkable. He is the NFL MVP as well. And then James Robinson, again, I think we were one of the first people in the industry, podcasts. It's a credit to Pete Prisco. And I'll go back to my friend Mark Long, who covers the Jaguars for the Associated Press. The 2 of them, very much from before Leonard Fournette was released, immediately after Leonard Fournette was released, this is the guy you got to go get. And, I hope we helped a lot of people in that regard by telling you to draft James Robinson, and he was special for the majority of his rookie campaign.
Okay, did anybody have – I also had Aaron Rodgers. I did not have James Robinson as one of my 2 nominees. Did anybody have different names?
Yeah. I have 4 names.
Oh, wow.
And Rodgers and Robinson were 2 of them. The other 2 were Bills players, Josh Allen and Dawson Knox. Stephon Diggs. Allen and Diggs, I think they deserve to be nominated. I don't think they're going to win, but they were both amazing values on draft day. Not quite as good as Rodgers and Robinson, but very good.
Okay, Chris?
David Montgomery. RB4 for the season, absolute stud in the playoffs. Helped if you had him on your team and you made the championship, you almost certainly won because of how good he was. He was the 80th pick in CBS fantasy leagues coming into the season. I think he was like RB30 or something. Hurt. What was it?
He was hurt going.
Yeah, he was hurt before.
Yeah, he was hurt in week 1. I don't think he played week 1, did he?
But he went behind Leonard Fournette, Cam Akers, Devin Singletary, J.K. Dobbins, Tariq Cohen. He was better than all of them by a wide margin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say David Montgomery helped a lot of people. And when you talk about value, I think
he did play week 1.
Did you have another nominee, or that was your different one?
James Robinson was my other one.
James Robinson. Okay, I had Waller, round 6 pick, scored 45 more points than tight end 3 in non-PPR. Scored 104 more points than tight end 3 in PPR. 104. That's amazing. and good value on Waller. And also, he was really good in the fantasy postseason. He scored 14, 30, and 16 PPR fantasy points. The reason why I didn't go with James Robinson, guys, is because he missed week 16. So I hate to penalize him too much, but that's why he didn't make my top 2. But I guess he should definitely be in our top 4. All right, so Aaron Rodgers and James Robinson are definitely in. Then let's pick 2 more between Waller, Allen, Diggs, and Montgomery. Schrager, you want to kind of have the final say here?
Yeah, let's go 1 quarterback. Let's make Rodgers the quarterback, and I like
you
Waller.
can't go 2 quarterbacks.
And I think Montgomery's a good case.
Okay. So that's James Robinson, Aaron Rodgers, Darren Waller, and David Montgomery. All right, I like it. Dave, I'm going to throw to you first here. Biggest bust. 2 are your nominees.
So I had a hard time coming up with the biggest bust who played 16 games. I know that injury shouldn't be taken into account, but I'm putting it in there. And to that regard, I think Michael Thomas is the biggest bust because when he did play, he had a couple of great games. He didn't score a touchdown. There were games where he didn't get the target volume early in the year where he didn't get the target volume that we thought he was going to get. And then you had to wait for him to come back, not once, but twice. And it was frustrating to have him. He was a first-round pick. In a lot of leagues, he was inside the top 5. He's my biggest candidate to be a biggest bust, even though I'm dinging him for missing time. And I know that's not the other thing to do. And then the other one's pretty obvious.
Play with Breeze, though, half that time, too.
I know. And so it was problematic for people who counted on him to be that superstar target getter that he was the past 2 years. Ezekiel Elliott is the other one. There were people that were fed up with him. They weren't sure when to start him. Week 16 was one of those times where no one was sure what to do with Ezekiel Elliott, and then he ended up having a great game.
Okay. I thought about Zeke, but he was just so good for the first 5 weeks of the season that I couldn't quite put him there.
I understand.
All right, Chris, who are your top 2 biggest busts?
Le'Veon Bell and Todd Gurley were top 32 picks this season in CBS fantasy leagues. Gurley was decent for like 9 weeks. And those are 2 guys who didn't get hurt. They were just, Gurley, especially down the stretch. If you had him in your lineup after, I think, week 10, he combined for like 16 points from week 10 to week 6, maybe 22. It was a really low number, and he only missed 1 of those games. And then obviously Le'Veon Bell yes, he got hurt, but once he landed with the Chiefs, there was some hope that maybe it would revitalize him. He was a non-factor even when we thought he would be good.
Mm-hmm. I had Le'Veon Bell as well. I had Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think he's the biggest bust.
He's on my list. Yep.
Yeah, and you know what? The biggest reason he was the week 13 game when he didn't play. And it was Sunday night, and you probably started him because you got the report that he was going to play, and he fooled you, and he screwed you like really bad, just did not play. So I had Bell and Edwards-Helaire. Chris had Bell and Gurley. Dave had Thomas and Elliott. Jamie, who are your biggest busts?
Well, Lamar Jackson. I mean, he was not a good fantasy quarterback for the majority of the season based on where he was drafted as the number 1 guy as a first-round pick, which we told you could be the potential of him faltering, and don't take a quarterback in round 1. So he's the easiest choice to me. And then Ezekiel Elliott was the second one. It is a little unfair to put it all on him because of his quarterback going down in week 5 and his offensive line falling apart. But I think Dave said it best. A lot of people were still trusting him, and he kept letting us down. And other running backs have had things around them go poorly and still performed a little bit more adequately than what Zeke was. But based on where his draft capital started and the way that he finished, it was a disappointing season for him. So those are my 2 choices.
And he was picked ahead of Thomas. He was picked ahead of Edwards-Helaire. He entered last week as RB 15 in PPR points per game. And I feel like there were fantasy managers who were starting him just because, I took him with the first with my first pick. I got to keep him in my lineup, right? And then there were people who just, like I said, week 16, you didn't know what to do because he was coming off a game that he missed and Tony Pollard was on fire. I just think he was a headache. He was a problem.
Yeah, but he was a lot better than Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
And they're kind of the same, right? Because Edwards-Helaire got off to a really good start. And then there were definitely weeks where you didn't know what to do with Edwards-Helaire.
It was good. It wasn't amazing because he only scored 1 touchdown, I think, in those first 6 games. So in the first 6 games before Le'Veon Bell, Clyde Edwards-Helaire was 18th in non-PPR, 17th PPR per game. Overall, he was better than that. He was 12th. But per game, he was like 18th. All right, so Ben, I think we got to have Zeke on there, and I would think we probably got to have Le'Veon Bell on there.
I think you got to have Edwards-Helaire on there.
Sounds like we got to have Clyde Edwards-Helaire on there. So who's our fourth?
Yeah, it comes down to Gurley, Michael Thomas, and Lamar Jackson. And I think Lamar played too well down the stretch, and Michael Thomas had too many excuses. So we'll go Gurley.
Okay, I like that. Rookie of the year. If we're looking for a top, I think we can just kind of. Chris pointed out on FFT at 5. If your first name started with a J,
yeah,
you're one of the rookies of the year. James Robinson, Justin Herbert, Justin Jefferson, Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm not going to argue.
Yeah, that's got to be the list. We'll let the people vote.
And you could throw in J.K. Dobbins as an honorable mention.
I love it.
Joe
That's
Burrow,
Jerry
too, is an
Jeudy.
honorable mention.
Who?
Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow. This is kind of weird. 6 J's. How about that? All right, best and worst waiver wire pickup were tough. Chris, I'll give you the first word. Best waiver wire pickup. Who are your nominees?
If your name started with a J and you were a rookie, you were one of the best waiver wire pickups in 2020. I have Justin Herbert and James Robinson.
All right, Robinson. I don't think I want on there.
It's iffy.
He was 69% rostered.
So I looked it up.
Week 1.
Going into week 1, he was. I looked up Jamie's waiver wire column. He was like 9% owned or rostered as of like Sunday of heading into week 1. However, like 45% of CBS fantasy drafts happened between Monday and Thursday. So he was probably closer to like 50 to 60% rostered by kickoff.
This is one where it's us versus the world, because I think for our leagues, he was drafted in that final stretch of days before the season started. We did see a lot of James Robinson saved me my fantasy season from other sites. Now that was
maybe, but I will tell you. But I looked at my notes from week 1 waiver wire. I guess like going into week 2, and he was 69% rostered. So I'll let you guys decide. Is James?
That's what I'm saying. I don't think for us it qualifies, but I do think for other sites they were chasing James Robinson.
He could win MVP and he could win Rookie of the Year, so we can keep him out of waiver wire. But yeah, I think Jamie's right. I think he was around 50% on other sites after week 1.
Okay. Yeah, we don't want to like this. The awards would be sponsored by James Robinson, I think, if we gave him too many. All right. So I'm sorry. You said James Robinson and Justin Herbert. Okay.
Should we do biggest bust for 2021? James Robinson.
Dave, who are your nominees for best waiver wire pickup?
Those were my first 2 names, but I have like 8 names. The next 2, I'll only give 2. Myles Gaskin and Mike Davis. Davis saved people, man. Like as the replacement for Christian McCaffrey, I know that there were several weeks toward the end of the season. Basically, he had 2 halves of the year where the first half he was amazing. He was a must-start fantasy running back, and then the second half, not quite as good. But he absolutely filled in a gap if you had Christian McCaffrey or if you had Saquon Barkley or if you just needed a running back in general. And Myles Gaskin, man, like finished strong, was the lead guy for the Dolphins when he played, and had some really good numbers and was, I think, pretty consistent.
I forgot about him. That's good.
He was must start when he played.
Yep. Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
That was one of a handful of guys that we would have been on top of if there were preseason games.
Jamie, Mike Davis, Miles. Did you have any other names? We got Gaskin, Davis.
Yeah,
I'll give my names.
I'll
I'll give my names after everybody else, just in case.
I went for 2 guys that helped you in the playoffs, more specifically in Week 16, which were Jeff Wilson and Jalen Hurts. I was looking at the email from Frank Oliarczyk about the players that were started in most championship games, and those 2 guys were in the top 15, I believe. And so Hurts, while he did not have a great Week 16, I'm sure he helped a lot of people in the semifinals with his 43-point performance when we said start him. And then even though he didn't have a monster game, he still was, at least for me, helped me win a couple championships because he was a starting quarterback, but also Jeff Wilson. Conversely enough, I appreciate Dave dropping Jeff Wilson in our championship round because he didn't play him, and I was able to beat him without Jeff Wilson on his roster.
It's true.
Yeah, I had Wilson.
But that was done by design.
These are good.
I don't have a good excuse.
Tough calls. We can throw out some more. Doesn't have to be Justin Jefferson.
I think he was like 60 to 70% drafted.
He was but he was 39% rostered after his Week 3 game.
Yeah, you have a few guys that fall into like a weird category of Justin Jefferson, Cam Akers, guys that were drafted and dropped, that were picked up.
Dobbins.
It's just the nature of how it unfolds for some of these guys, especially younger players.
So should we not include them for the sake of this?
No, I
You
think
can
you could.
include them, but I don't think they'll win.
I think you
Justin
could.
Jefferson, a top 7 wide receiver, got off the waiver wire. I think he wins. Robbie Anderson, I had Robert Tonyan, Logan Thomas, T. Higgins, Chase Claypool, Fulgham. These are what do we got, Ben? What do you think?
You want a couple more?
Yeah.
Brandon Ayuk. I didn't hear
Yep.
his name. Corey Davis. I didn't hear his name.
That's
I went back and looked at our notes. He was 10% rostered after week 1.
It's a really good one. Ben, what do you think? This is hard. This is really hard.
This is tough. I think Mike Davis and Gaskin are locks, and since we're including Justin Jefferson, he's a lock too. But Justin Herbert, Jeff Wilson, Brandon Ayuk, where do we fall on those 3? Let's get one.
Herbert's got to be in there.
Yeah, I think Herbert's got to be there.
Yeah.
All right, we got it. Herbert, Davis, Gaskin, and Jefferson.
Okay.
Solid.
How
Worst.
about this about this for Mike Davis to help his case? Combine him and Christian McCaffrey's production, because they basically, played 15 games total, 298.8 PPR points. That was good for 4th among running backs.
All right. That's great. The waiver wire, the worst waiver wire pickup. I found this.
I got my guy.
All right, go ahead. Who you got?
Naheem Hines. We were crazy about him after week 1. He stunk after week 1. And then he came back and he had 2 touchdowns in week 8. Then he stunk in week 9. Then he came back in week 10 with a big game. Then he stunk after that. 3 different times this year, he made the waiver wire list. And he was either first or second in week 1. And he just got tailored. He got ran over by the J train over in Indianapolis.
Okay, that one's definitely got to make the list. Did you have 2 or just?
I've got a bunch, but I'll wait till the end to give the rest.
Chris.
I'm going with week 10 Duke Johnson, when he started for David Johnson and had 54 rushing yards and no catches or touchdowns. And Alexander Madison, chalk week 6. This is what we've been waiting for. Alexander Madison. We told you
It's a good one.
he's a must-start guy if he ever gets the opportunity. He had 26 rushing yards and 4 receiving yards on 1 catch with no touchdowns.
Yeah, miserable game. Great call there. I stole that one from you. I went with him, and I couldn't think of anyone, so I went with Scotty Miller in week 5.
He's on my list. Yep.
Yeah, he was 30% rostered. He was only 8% started, so I just don't think he can quite make it. But he had no catches. He had 83 yards and a touchdown the week before. No Chris Godwin in that game. Thursday night game. I remember starting
Thursday night game. Yeah,
starting Scotty Miller. 0 targets in that game. Jamie, worst waiver wire pickups.
I went with Duke Johnson in week 10 also. And then Jordan Wilkins after his week 8 game was that was at the point where Jonathan Taylor was struggling. We didn't know what was going to happen there. And Wilkins had the 20 carry performance against Detroit. It was also the same game Naeem Hines had the 2 touchdowns. And so it was, okay, maybe Wilkins is taking over, not to start him, but to pick him up. And he was just a joke afterwards.
Okay, this is good stuff here.
Want a few more?
Yeah.
Benny Snell after week 1. Because James Conner wasn't getting a whole lot of work. And that was, I think Benny Snell and Naheem Hines were the 2 names that led Jamie's column going into week 2.
Probably so.
Right. So Connor got hurt in week 1, but then he made it back for week 2, right? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Carlos Hyde after week 7. He was this big time performer, but we weren't sure if he was going to play. He was inactive the next 3 games. After we were talking about him as, yeah, he could be someone to pick up at running back, lead the Seahawks run game. I think Carson was beat up at that time. And one that I particularly relish is Jameis Winston. The Tuesday after Drew Brees got hurt. He had a punctured lung and fractured ribs. And, it's going to be Jameis Winston. Got to be the guy. Got the matchup against Atlanta. And he didn't even start.
Mate, that's a great call.
Yeah.
All right, so Madison has to be on there. I'm pretty convinced.
Oh, Madison? I thought Madison was too rostered. No?
Do we know what the percentage was?
I can tell you.
I'm pretty sure he was the lead of that's. Yeah. Let me see.
He might have been under 65% at that point.
Okay, but Schrager, what do we got? Who's your top 4 here?
Hines, Madison, Duke Johnson, and Jameis Winston. I can't believe we all forgot about him, Dave. That was a great call. So those 4, if Madison qualifies. Otherwise, maybe Wilkins.
I'm going to tell you right
A
now.
lot of guys that I did not want.
Madison on that.
Madison was 72%.
Oh, he was
so-
72%.
Ooh.
Oh,
That's
no.
not a
Okay, we have
good
to get rid of him.
Yeah.
Get rid of him.
All right,
right,
Wilkins
Ben.
or Benny Snell?
No Hines?
Hines is a lock.
Hines made it.
All right, I wasn't sure.
I would say Snell. That week one storyline was big.
Yeah, I mean that was like the because that was the first game of the season, right? That was the Island game, and so the
One of
big
the two. There was the 2 Monday night games that night.
yeah, the big conversation was, wow, Benny Snell looks a lot better than James Conner. He's
Yes,
coming
he
for that
did.
job.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I like it. 1 week performance of the year, our final category. I have two that these have to be the two, but I'll let you guys go instead.
I
Jamie,
bet we have the same two.
okay. All right, Jamie, I'll let you start though. Jamie, what are your two? 1 week.
You mentioned him as a bust. It was Clyde Edwards-Helaire week 1. We thought, okay, this is the start of the big season coming, and he had 19 fantasy points in that game. He looked like he was going to be the second coming of Jamal Charles and Damian Williams in his peak, and Christian Okoye and every great Chiefs running back we've ever seen, and
Kareem Hunt.
every great Andy Reid running back we've ever seen. It looked like it was the start of something special, and it was basically downhill from there.
Okay, what else?
I was just because I was looking at this, and it kind of tied into the waiver wire stuff because we thought he was going to be somebody that could help you. Was Marcus Mariota's 27 points in week 15 when he looked like he was going to be a potential difference maker in the playoffs and didn't even play the next week.
Okay, Dave, you think you got the same ones that I have?
Didn't Alvin Kamara have 6 touchdowns in
Yes.
week 16?
So I think Jamie and I read this differently than you two.
Oh, like
Wow.
one hit wonder?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Jamie and I both looked at it as one hit
Oh.
wonder. Yeah.
Ben, what's the ruling? What's the category?
That's what we did last year, actually. One hit wonder. So let's pivot to that.
Oh crap! I have nothing for
Yeah,
that.
neither do I.
It's the
Well,
Jamie
I've
and
got
Chris
one.
show.
I like the other category better. Like we're
Yeah, we
celebrating.
could just go top point scorer. It's super
Yeah,
easy
that's
to
No.
find.
too easy.
No,
Yeah.
because Alvin Kamara scoring 6 touchdowns in your championship week.
But that's going to win.
poetic.
Adam.
Right, but
Like,
like,
to their
that's-
credit,
hey.
that's what's going to win.
And also,
Should
it's Alvin Kamara. Like, of course, he had a huge game.
all right.
That's what he
okay,
does.
fine. So 1 week, one hit wonder of the.
I'll help
of
you
the-
out, Adam. Guy who you started for probably 9 straight weeks after a giant performance at wide receiver.
Oh, Tyler
Yeah.
Lockett.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he was. So Dave, what was the other one you had? Tyreek Hill
Yeah.
at Tampa Bay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was amazing going up against Carlton Davis and smoking him for 200 yards in the first quarter. But okay, we'll do it the other way. So Clyde Edwards either in week 1, Mariota, Tyler Lockett. Chris, what were your nominees?
Sorry, I just got distracted by the fact that Tyler Lockett finished as wide receiver 8. It's just
Oh my
stunning.
God.
17.
This is the difference between total scoring and week to week consistency.
Right.
Even
What was
PPR
he in
points per
fantasy
game, he
points
was
per game?
12th.
Well, when you throw in a
Yeah.
50 and a 30,
Yeah,
it helps.
that's shocking.
Right.
Did he have he had almost 100 catches, right? He set a Seahawks record for catches.
was good.
He had 100 catches. Like that is shocking to me. You don't expect that from Tyler Lockett. And that is 5th most in the NFL, tied with Keenan Allen. All right, sorry. Now back to it, Chris. What were your nominees for this category?
Richie James in week 9, 9 catches, 184 yards and a touchdown, 33.4 PPR points.
Great one.
And Tony Pollard, week
That's a
13,
good
14, 69 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, 6 catches, 63 yards, 31.2 PPR points.
Was that 14 or 15? I think it was week
14.
15. Mm-mm. Week
Yeah,
15,
you're
he
right.
had
You're right. It was
30
15.
fantasy points in PPR.
Can't argue with any of these. I don't think I can top them off the top of my head.
I don't think I can top them either, but Joe Burrow in that game against Cleveland, it was week 7.
Who I
And
got?
I think we liked him going into
What
that
about
game.
Baker in that game against Cincinnati?
Yeah, that's a good point. Like
I was
both
gonna
quarterbacks
say-
in that game.
Beckham against Cleveland, against Dallas was great.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know how you feel about this one. Joe Mixon was having such a bad year, facing a Jaguars run defense that we were like, they have a really good run defense. And then he went
Dope.
off that week.
That's a
And
good
it
one.
was, yeah. So
That's a
that
great
was
one.
fine, Joe Mixon. All right. Are we good here? You got
What
enough?
about Benny Snell week 1?
It wasn't that good. It wasn't quite good enough.
Mixon's a really good call because every time I sort by PPR points per game, he's 10th.
Yeah.
And it was really, he had one good game. He was not like he had 15 PPR points in one other game, but it was 42 in that game and like 90 in the 60 in the rest of them. 58.
He's got a chance to bounce back in such a huge way next year.
This is why you never sit your studs. How many times did we hear that after that?
I think for next year, you guys should call this the Jonah Gray performance of the year.
Yes, that would have helped. All right, Ben, what do we got here? What are our top 4?
All right, top 3 is a lock. Tyler Lockett, OBJ, and Mixon. The 4th spot, do we go Clyde week 1 or Tony Pollard week 15?
Pollard.
I don't know that
People picked up and used Pollard that week, and he came through.
Week 16 was kind of a fooled you performance too.
Yeah,
it was that one run at the end, the 40-yard down run. He was more or less kept in check. Okay, that's good stuff. Thank you, guys. We'll go vote on our Facebook page.
Should we have Taysom Hill somewhere in best waiver wire pickup too?
He's fine. Yeah.
I mean, he was
the
a top 3
nominees that we
quarterback
have
while he started.
Right.
Yeah, he was pretty damn good. But
We have Herbert, Davis, Gaskin, Jefferson.
The only thing about Gaskin is he missed
enough.
3 games. He missed 5 games in the middle of the season that were pretty crucial.
Yeah, I mean, he basically just came back for the championship.
Right. Like the thing about Gaskin was good when he played, but you had 3 weeks with the knee injury, was on IR, and then 2 weeks with COVID, and there were so many questions about playing in week 16. I wonder what his start percentage was in the championship round.
He had 9 games with 10 or more non-PPR fantasy points.
All right.
His track record is better than Taysom Hill's.
Chris, I don't think. How could Taysom Hill have been a top 3 quarterback? He wasn't.
I mean, maybe he was top 5. I was just saying things, Adam.
Well, you can't just say that. This is an award show. That's like that. I mean, that's like when people say that that movie that's so mediocre that won Best Picture is actually good. What was the name of that movie, Chris?
Crash?
Terminator 2.
No, the recent one about the parasite.
Oh, you didn't like. Oh, you're just wrong on that. You're just wrong.
It's fine. You know, it was Taysom Hill. It wasn't Aaron Rodgers.
The other thing about Taysom Hill too is on certain sites for Taysom Hill, he was a tight end that week. That was a big deal.
We have to have Taysom Hill somewhere.
He's on there. He's over Gaskin.
Shouldn't he belong in the 1 week performance category instead of the waiver wire?
He had 4 weeks in a row.
Yeah. I just think Gaskin was great, but he let you down for 5 really important weeks.
I completely disagree.
And nobody started him really the first 2.
Right, he wasn't started until about like week 5 or 6.
Okay, so you still got 7 really good games out of him.
Get 5 names in there, but we're just not doing it. But I think Taysom Hill is a good call. I think he's too important a part of the 2020 storyline to leave off the award show.
And Myles Gaskin isn't.
There's no comparison.
No, I don't
There's
think so.
absolutely a comparison.
About what was more important and what was more
What was more impactful? A running back that you found off the waiver wire that helped you
for
in 9 weeks, or Taysom
Hill,
Hill who wasn't even on our radar until the end of the
compare that
week.
to Myles Gaskin. That's
ridiculous. There were 4 games of him, and he wasn't even dominant when he was doing it. He was good.
Taysom Hill wasn't. I mean, it is worth pointing out. Taysom Hill wasn't a waiver wire pickup. If you have
he was
just one run on Tuesday, because nobody picked him up on Tuesday.
I'm not denying that he wasn't a good pickup, but he's not one of the top 4 pickups of the year.
I mean, Dave has a point. Gaskin definitely had a bigger fantasy.
It doesn't matter. I mean, we named so many guys that were important for fantasy. We're talking about something that people were excited about, interested in, and was controversial. How is that not part of this?
I'm making an executive decision, Ben. 5 players for that category.
We'll go 5. Let's do it.
All right. We're going to finish the show with your
emails.
emails.
Gets more votes between Hill and Gaskin.
Yeah, this is going to be fun.
Fantasyfootball@cbsi.com. This one's from Reed. Let's do these quickly, guys. I was offered Alvin Kamara for DeAndre Swift and pick 110 in Dynasty. Do I take it? Or 1.10, however you want to say it. 10th pick of the first round. So you give up Swift in the 10th pick, you get Kamara. Do you do it?
Easy.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is from Chris, Dear Jimmy, Nick, CJ, and Josh.
49ers quarterbacks.
Yeah. 12-team half PPR. Keep 2. McCaffrey, Metcalf, Ekeler, Kittle. Pick 2.
Oh,
McCaffrey, Metcalf.
Really?
I have Metcalf ranked 4th out of this group.
McCaffrey's easy.
McCaffrey's easy.
McCaffrey's the easy call.
I could see myself pivoting to Ekeler if I like how his situation shakes out during the offseason. But if I'm making the decision right now, it's Metcalf.
What I really like about picking Ekeler or Kittle, frankly, is just that if you pick Ekeler and McCaffrey, you just don't have to worry about running back for a while. And that's kind of how I want to draft this year. I want like 2 running backs in my first 3 picks, and then I just don't want to think about it.
You want to set it and forget it.
Yeah.
All right, Ryan from a city in southeastern Ontario. Dave, you're familiar with the area.
Pugsville.
Dear Mac, Charlie, and Dennis. It's always Sandwich in Philadelphia. 12-team, 5-keeper league. How are you not laughing?
Now
at
you're
that?
hating on the TV show. What's next? You're going to say Rocky is a terrible film series?
I might. I hate them so much right now.
Are you ever going to eat a cheesesteak again?
It's gonna take a while for me to
Is
get
the
over.
Liberty Bell overrated?
Do you know that Peterson said he was going to play Sudfeld in the game?
Yeah, he said that before
I
the
didn't
game.
know that at
to
the time. But
Alan Crisp.
I thought what he said was that if they had the right situation for him.
Well, that was the right situation for him.
Yeah, right. Like you have to evaluate Jalen Hurts there. That's what you have to do. You have to see how he does in the fourth quarter of a 3-point game against a good defense against your divisional rival. That's what Why? Because he's going to be your quarterback next year. That's why.
If you were going to evaluate Sudfeld, you would start Sudfeld for the game.
I think they did not
give him the
I'm
fourth
sorry
quarter
to say
down
this
3
about Sudfeld, but they didn't need to evaluate him. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Keep 5 of these guys. Dalvin Cook in the first, Hopkins in the second, Metcalf in the third, AJ Brown in the fourth, Mixon in the fifth, Josh Allen in the sixth, Ronald Jones in the seventh, Myles Gaskin and Cortland Sutton in the 16th round. Okay, not easy here. Let's say that AJ Brown in the fourth is a yes.
Yep.
Non-PPR. Mixon in the fifth. We'll come up. Dalvin Cook in the first.
I think I keep the first 4.
Hopkins in the second. Metcalf in the
How
third.
do you throw
Brown
back Josh Allen?
He's keeping 4.
Yep.
Brown, Allen, Dalvin, and
Don't forget about Gaskin and Sutton in the 16th.
yeah, I was gonna
round.
say Gaskin. I don't know if he's a starter next year. If
I
he's a
agree.
starter next year, that's easy.
But we don't know.
Right.
But we know Sutton will be.
Right. So it's between those 2, depending on when he has to make the decision.
I think it's Sutton.
From Tom, I traded James Robinson and Devin Singletary and a 2nd-round pick for Austin Ekeler, Jalen Reagor, and a 4th-round pick in a PPR Dynasty League. Was this a good move? Gave up James Robinson, Singletary, and a 2nd-round pick for Ekeler, Reagor, and a 4th-round pick, PPR Dynasty.
Feels like a wash.
I like it.
I think I like it.
The most likely outcome is Eckler's the only impact player among that. Well,
Not James
Robinson, I guess, yeah.
Reagor could be too. I'm not ready to write off Reagor after this year.
Right.
But we just Robinson's going to be the most popular bust candidate across the board because he came out of nowhere and his situation's definitely going to change in Jacksonville.
Yeah, but it could change for the better though. Just
Could be a
depends on
lot
where his
better.
ADP lies.
I don't. If
Do you see him
Or
being the guy
team-
for like 3+ years there?
all I know is if more teams did what the Eagles did last night, we'd have ping pong balls and a lottery system. It was disgusting. It was a disgrace to sports.
Why?
Don't do that. You don't quit the game in the third quarter, in the fourth quarter.
But
You
what
don't-
if
Like
what if
4
they-
other
what
teams
if-
did that. 4 other teams did that yesterday, Adam.
Who?
But just look at the Bills.
Buffalo,
okay?
Pittsburgh.
Jacksonville basically did it for the last couple of weeks.
Just look at the Bills. Just look at the Bills.
Buffalo,
If the
Pittsburgh,
Bills
Kansas
decided
City.
that they wanted to pull their quarterback and they put in Matt Barkley, and Barkley was playing very well.
Hold on. You can't be that dumb to put the teams that were resting their starters for
Oh,
games to
yes,
you
play.
can't be that
I
dumb
can be
to
that
suggest
dumb,
that
Adam.
the
Don't
backup
ever
quarterback comes in
underestimate how
and could
dumb I can
necessarily
be.
play better because the backup could have played better.
The backup, this Nate Sudfeld was not going to play better than Jalen Hurts. There's no.
And Matt Barkley wasn't going to play better than Josh Allen, but he played just as well.
It doesn't matter. It
What
does
do you mean
not
doesn't
Mike
matter?
Gabbert
The
did
backup
2
came
weeks
in and
ago.
played
Matt
well.
Barkley
The
is a
backup could
veteran
have come
quarterback. No, Nate, there was no reason to do that.
Your team lost out in the playoffs.
No, there was
Adam.
no
Go cry
reason to
somewhere
do
else. It's not a bad decision.
No, it
Adam,
was a
the
terrible
Jets-
decision.
The Jets
it was a terrible
kept Adam Gase as their coach for 16 games.
It was a terrible decision, and it's almost unanimous across the sports industry. Like, you're just being devil's advocate right now, Jamie. Actually, you're just being an antagonist. It was a disgraceful decision, and he quit on his team.
It's not disgraceful.
They should quit on him. He deserves to be quit on.
Well, what if it came from the top, Adam?
Then they should quit on the front office because it did come from the top. It's probably
No, I'm talking higher than the front office.
The Jaguars.
They probably made Peter
came from God.
The Jaguars benched. The Jaguars benched their best quarterback.
But they
most
did
of the second half of the
17
season.
Also, when they had
they did.
Don't like.
Gardner Minshew was healthy and available, and they started Mike
won
Glennon.
them a game.
Right. What I'm saying
Not
is
only that, Gardner Minshew was healthy and available, and they played Jake Luton.
They could have gone back to Minshew in week 17 when they didn't have anything to lose, but they didn't. So they just don't like Minshew as much as we like Minshew. That's pretty obvious to me.
Oh, that's very obvious.
Right. I was like, okay, they really don't want to win here, but they could have gone back to Minshew in week 17, but they were locked into the 1 seed or the 1 pick. So they could have done that, but they didn't. So they
you're saying that this is a terrible thing and bad for the sport. He said at the beginning of the week he's going to play Nate Sudfeld at some point.
No, he didn't say. He said if the situation was right, and if you really want to evaluate,
talking about a coach who was a backup quarterback himself that wanted to give a guy a chance to play.
They're already giving a backup quarterback a chance.
And no, that's their
hold
starter.
on.
That's not
Doesn't it mean anything
the
that Jalen
Giants
Hurts
started
was
Daniel
7-20
Jones for 16 games?
No, they didn't, Chris. He started for 14 games, and they pulled him when they didn't think he was giving them the best chance to win. They started Colt McCoy that one game, or one game where he was at, or Jones was. Whatever, you know what I'm saying? No, this is completely different. It was a terrible decision. It was a disgrace. I will never eat a cheesesteak. To be a few months before I eat a cheesesteak again. And the Liberty Bell sucks. Okay, we're out of here. Goodbye.
Did you root for
Bruce Arians, by the way, said Mike Evans is, if he's 80% healthy, he's playing.
Okay, great. Did I root for Drago? Is that what you asked me?
Yeah.
No, but I used to.
Now you will.
I probably
Adam
will.
Adam hates the Roots. He's never listened to Hall & Oates again.
I didn't know they were from Philadelphia.
It's going to be butter on his bagel from now on.
That's goodbye.
Want more of the Fantasy Football Today podcast and nonstop year-round fantasy advice? It's simple. Hit the subscribe button and hang with us all throughout the year.